Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. Tonight, again, hidden from the camera, still undercover on a secret mission, Mala Mahadevan. How's it going, Mala?
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Before we get too far in, I did come up with this little slide bit right here saying that TriPass elections are coming up for the Triangle SQL Server User Group board. We have 3 board elections coming up, 3 board members, the president, VP of marketing, and treasurer positions. So currently, I am El Presidente. Rick Pack is VP of marketing, and Mala is treasurer. All 3 of those are available. All 3 of us are running again, but if you are also interested in running for any of those positions, please reach out to me. I sent an email out to all TriPass members. If you have not gotten that, you can hit us up, shoptalk@tripass.org, and I'll get that email as well. So talk to me by November 10th, because at that point, we're going to basically close the running. If there are multiple people running for a particular board position, then we'll work out basically email with what your positions are, what your stands are, whether or not you're pro or anti-Oracle, what all the important issues. And the election will run from November 19th through December 3rd. Stay tuned for more details on that. So with that, I'm now going to switch back to mega screen mode. All right, so Mala, you have an announcement as well.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the Azure SQL Championship that's coming up. This is actually a championship that's being run by Microsoft and promoted in a big way by SQL Pass. And some of us, because of our association with Pass, we have been asked to be the judges on this, and I'm one of the judges. So I'm going to post the link in there.
Already done.
Oh, you already did. Okay. So it's a really easy contest. It's like you answer a few questions on Azure every week for 3 weeks. And then at the end of it, they have some prizes lined up. I think the first prize is free attendance to the Pass Summit 2021, which they think will be a live in-person summit. So it's, it's a good sum of money there, and a couple of other prizes too to come. It's a good way to get your Azure skills up if you haven't. And the link, the Microsoft link in that below, it also has some material to train with if you want to get some, if you're not new to Azure, like, many people are, and then you want to learn more about it. There's a YouTube channel series, a Microsoft Learning Path, and various things below that. So it's completely okay to watch a video and then try the contest too. It's not for experts or anything like that, and I think it'll be a fun way to learn. So please give it a shot if you want to. It's going to start on October the 12th and run through the end of the month.
All right, so check that out. Link is in chat, and will be in the show notes afterwards. So our main topic for tonight came from Leslie, who emailed me shortly after the last episode of Shop Talk. And I'm going to pull up the text so that I get it kind of right. The gist of it is that you have people who have learned some SQL, basically trial by fire, and understanding how some stuff works, but how would you go about training somebody when it comes to building up those relational database skills? So specifically, the realm of database development, and definitely interested in chat feedback on this. Mala and I thought about it for a bit and basically decided to try to overwhelm people with books. So, I think the first topic probably is going to be, you have to understand some of the basics of SQL. And there are a few books that I really do enjoy on the topic. So first one I'm going to drop in is Itzhak Ben-Ghan's T-SQL Fundamentals, 3rd edition. You can note that I have in fact purchased this item. This is, I've actually purchased it twice. This is an outstanding book. If you are new to the language, if you're new to T-SQL, or frankly, even if you are reasonably good at it, you'll still learn a lot from this book. It has a great way of teaching, and for my money, he is the top SQL developer around. Now, my money is only good in certain countries, but this is TriPass is one of them. Definitely, I would recommend that as one of the first things. In fact, when I was training a person who was an intern and then became a full-time data engineer, first thing on SQL was this book. Got her a copy of the book and said, read through this thing. And I think that has worked out reasonably well. Now, another book, we actually had her present for the user group recently, Kathy Kellenberger. She has Beginning T-SQL, and this is another good book if you're interested in understanding some of the syntax, understanding like how the language works. So I think
Kathy is a very good teacher that way.
Oh yes, she is excellent at that.
Yeah.
Even before that, I think you look at both of those books, and for example, I have right here Itzhak's book. It is not a light book. This is 300 some pages, 400 some pages. So not exactly the type of book that I would give to somebody who has never even heard of the term SQL and say it's no problem at all. I'd give it to someone who basically doesn't have any other choice. You're locked in. Now it's time to learn it the right way. If you want somebody who is maybe a business analyst or who is just brand new to this world, and you don't necessarily want to give them a big book, Carlos Chacon actually has a nice Kindle book. You can get it in paperback, but it is available with Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for free. 0 to SQL in 20 lessons. It is designed explicitly, actually, he designed it explicitly for one of his employees who had no experience with SQL at all. So this is the gentle ramp. And I would probably start it right there. And I've noticed I've already failed chat. I've already failed you all. So let me drop into chat links. This one is Kathy's book and Carlos's book. So I would say if you were absolutely new to the world of database development, you're probably not here, but this would be a good book to start out with. From there, I would pick up Itzhak's or Kathy's book and dive into it in a lot more detail. There's plenty beyond that in terms of how do I write SQL code which is better? How do I work in a real environment? And one of my favorite books for that is Grant Fritschi's book, SQL Server 2012 Query Performance Tuning. Now,
oh my gosh, that book is a monster book. I have it on my desk. It's still sitting at work. That is an excellent book.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It is, however,
but it's not for beginner SQL, Kevin. So I don't know why you want it here, but
yeah, it's definitely not. This is the type of book you pick up after you've gone through Itzhak's book, after you've gone through Carlos's book, after you've had a year or two to really.
Now the smaller version of the book, the Redgate version of the book, which is much smaller, that might be easier to swallow if you're a beginner. Grant is written both, and the smaller version is a much more condensed version of this one. Let me see if we can find the link for that. I'll post it.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
But this is also, I think, once you have that couple of years of experience you've gotten familiar with, and now you have to understand why that code you wrote in the first 2 years isn't working very well. It's returning results, but it's taking forever. This is one of the absolutely one of the better books for understanding what's going on.
That's true.
So I think that's probably one of the first places I would start. Is you have to learn SQL even before you get into the next topic. This next topic, by the way, Mala, do you have any recommendations on the T-SQL world beyond that before I get to the next topic?
No, I posted a couple of things in the document we had, the John Deerduff's training material, APRES training material.
Yeah, so let me drop that link in right now.
Yeah, that's a really good, I mean, he teaches a little capsule lessons, video-based lessons. So some of this depends on what your learning style is. Okay, some people learn well with books. Some people like videos and interactive stuff. So if you're the interactive kind of person, then John's material, and he's a really good teacher. He's not Itzik, he's not Grant when it comes to that kind of stuff. But he is an excellent teacher. And small lessons on how T-SQL works, and that's really good. All of that, the select statement, insert and everything. So he does a really good job covering all of this. And that's the T-SQL beginner thing that I would recommend for anyone who wants it.
Yeah. Now, there's another link that Mala dropped in, the SQL Quick Start Guide.
Yeah, that too.
Now, this is a book that I am not familiar with. Sorry, I'm taking notes since Mala dropped a new link in. I wanted to make sure that I got.
So this book, I will freely admit I have not read it page to page. I bought this book for a relative, a young kid who was getting started, and he said that he really liked it and he learned very well from it. So I have not read this book page to page. I just browsed it and I bought it for someone and they said good things about it. So I don't know the author here either.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm actually not sure either, to be honest. But if it worked, that sounds like that is a pretty similar target audience. So people who are completely new to the topic. Basically, one of these books, Carlos's book, maybe this one, and then moving up to Itzik's T-SQL Fundamentals, Kathy's Beginning T-SQL.
Right.
And then going to Grant's SQL Server 2017 Query Performance Tuning when it's time to really dig in. And by the way, chat, if you have any other ideas of books or actually other resources as well, there's plenty of stuff, for example, with Pluralsight, with quite a few services. So there's video training. There are YouTube videos that are available. Weird people put them out for free and let people watch them. It's so strange. I don't know why anyone would do that. Check out my YouTube channel and so actually check out the Triangle Area SQL Server User Group YouTube channel because we do have a lot of videos on various topics at different levels of say expectations around knowledge.
So I discovered this fairly recently. Brent Ozar does a live YouTube show on Saturday mornings, mostly with coding with T-SQL. Now, Brent is not exactly my go-to guy for T-SQL programming, but he's, everybody knows he's a master presenter and a very good teacher. Plus, he does not mind anybody asking any kind of questions on that show. It's a live show, and if you have time on Saturday morning, find Brent's channel on YouTube and subscribe to it, and you'll get a a warning, a message, or whatever that is that the show is starting, and he does it every Saturday morning. I think it's about 9 o'clock our time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, and I have found a couple of them to be really interesting. So
Okay,
if
great.
learning that way is your style, and if you want to ask a presenter real questions, you can do that. You can sign on to his show.
Yeah, that's another good option. There aren't too many people who do that.
Right.
So yeah, if that's more your speed, sure.
Yeah.
But I think
And if you want to keep asking somebody questions, I know some people learn like that. So
right.
he does not mind anyone. I've seen a lot of beginners on the show. He does not mind anyone asking any kind of questions. So go right ahead.
Okay, cool. So that's the T-SQL books. Basically, you wanna learn the language, not necessarily get too deep into it, because except for Grant's book, none of this gets beyond, say, beginner to intermediary. I don't think we get even very far into intermediate level of skill set. I think it's probably, this is your first couple of years, as opposed to somebody who's got 4 or 5 years of experience. So, that said, Grant's book kind of gets you into that space, and his book is very relevant, even if you are rather experienced in the world of SQL development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question technically included Oracle as well, but I am going to have to punt on that because I know bupkis about Oracle as of, say, anything after about 8i. So, no idea where you would go to learn about Oracle. I'm sure that there are other people who are going to be much better than I am at making recommendations there. So
My friend, one of my closest friends in the community, Kevin Klein, has had a book that's called SQL in a Nutshell, that covered, comparative Oracle SQL Server, and I think it was Postgres or MySQL. I don't remember what one of the another third MySQL. Okay, MySQL and Postgres looks like. So this is the only book that I know of written by somebody who's part of our community and who's a very good teacher too, who covers both Oracle and SQL Server. So that's a book, SQL in a nutshell. So if
yeah,
anyone wants that kind of a book, and if you're dealing with multiple database platforms, that's really useful.
yes. Although that
And
is
it's
about
I think it has a record number of reprints. I think it has like 8 or 10 reprints that I know of. So it's been going on a long, long time, which is
okay,
rare in the tech book world.
because this version is from 2008.
Yeah.
So, all right, there's another potential option for you. Now, pivoting a bit, you write your SQL queries, you kind of get an understanding of working with, say, tables that are already there, writing queries against tables that you've done, that somebody else has created. But when it comes time to build out your own, when it comes time to take that next step, the book for relational database design is the first half of the Handbook of Relational Database Design. So this book came out, I pointed out that the SQL in a Nutshell edition that showed up on Amazon was from 2008. I'm going to point out that this one is from 1989. So here's the thing. In this book, the first, let's call it 9 to 10 chapters, so about that much, outstanding. I think this is probably one of the best non-academic treatments of database normalization, of database modeling that I have seen. It's still my go-to guide. The second half of the book is trying to implement it on Oracle, Informix, and something else from the late 80s. So obviously that's completely say, not relevant to anybody who works in the industry today. But that first half is still gold. And the best part is that you can get a copy. So right now they have used copies there for $9.49, $11 for the hardback. If you look, I wonder if we've been driving down the number of copies in the market, because I've brought this up a couple times. I bought this for like $2 or $3, and that was when Grant Fritschi recommended it. So the price has gone up a little bit, but go check out some other sites. Actually, I don't want to do this on stream because who knows if the site is still around anymore. So I'm going to do this on another window so that if this does come up as something that's completely inappropriate, it won't show up on the stream. Looks like the website's still around, which is great. I love this website. Okay. The website is called isbn.nu. And isbn.nu, I used this, so I worked at a bookstore about 15 years ago. And I would use this to try to figure out when somebody was looking for a book and it wasn't in our stock, trying to figure out what exactly they were talking about, because they let you search by a bunch of different fields and have books that are way beyond what Amazon had at the time. It had not only Amazon, but a bunch of other sites linked in, including independent bookstores like Powell's and other sources around the world. So let's see how much they're pricing. Like Abe Books, you can get it for $5. Alibri, you can get it for $1.45. Amazon Marketplace, $2. So yeah, you can get this for about $5. This one is not going to break the bank for you. And that first half is still money. So suppose you say, but wait, I want something that was created this century. Well, I got you covered. Lewis Davidson, Pro SQL Server Relational Database Design. This is the 6th edition, has not yet been released. So, yeah, I can't tell you that the 6th edition will be fantastic just because I haven't seen it around yet. But wait, there's the 5th edition. 5th edition, including Jessica Moss, is around, is a really good book. So, let me drop this one in. So that's the 5th edition link. This is the Handbook of Relational Database Design. Solomon says we should set up a public Amazon list and then put all these books in there. So I might do that. What I'm definitely going to do is that if you check the Shop Talk show notes, after every episode, eventually when I post this thing, at shoptalk.tripass.org, we have show notes including the various topics we discussed and things maybe that I didn't get to when we were talking on stream. As a result, you can check out those show notes. That'll have some of it. But yeah, I like the idea of a public Amazon listing of books we've recommended, especially because Mala and I have gone through quite a few books in the past. So I've already put that on my to-do list. Thank you for the idea. So yeah, this is Lewis's masterpiece. It's a really good book. I think Lewis does an outstanding job. Jessica also does a great job when she writes. But I've gone through a couple versions of this book, going back to 2008. And Lewis has a fantastic writing style. He has a great way of explaining things, except for fifth normal form. But, that's very few people know how to describe fifth normal form very well, and I'm not really including myself in that list. But his description of fourth normal form, I think, is the best I've ever seen. He has a really strong intuition for how to describe database design. So if you're new to the topic or you want to build up those skills, I think this is a great book to go through. And as you build out those skills, you can go back to it, reference it repeatedly. So definitely worth it. Now, I'm gonna drop in a link. Look at that, I'm dropping it in chat first before I even drop it in here. That way, I remembered to do it. This is a book that, Mala, you put in here. Information Modeling and Relational Databases.
So, this is, I think I must have looked at it like at least 10 years ago. It's among my oldest books. I can't say I touch it very often, but it's one of those books. It's not very, Lewis's book is very SQL Server specific. So if you are working on, although the modeling techniques are generally applicable for anything relational, but his examples and the stuff, he's a SQL Server guy and he uses that liberally. This is more of a generic kind of a relational kind of a book. Like if you've read CJ8 and things like that, you want to go into this, and it's a lot of theory, if I recall, a ton of theory. There are plenty of examples, but different normal forms and what is relational theory based upon and all that kind of stuff. And it's sort of a very academic kind of reading. Yeah, if you're into that kind of a read, then it's really useful to understand. I'm an academic at heart. I like to understand the theory behind stuff, like how Kevin explains stuff. So if you're like me, if you like to understand that kind of stuff, then this is a really good book for you to keep on your shelf and read periodically, not just read page to page and take it, see what you can do at work. It's not that kind of a book. But to understand the basics, the fundamentals, it's a really, really good book.
Great. Yeah, as I looked at it, it was 900 some pages, so I figured this looks like a textbook.
Yes. It is a textbook.
Yeah. Putting in a link to isbn.new. Okay, it's HTTPS, but whatever. So that way, in case you have, say, information modeling and relational databases, I was scrolling down to when it was released because, yeah, you can buy it on Amazon for $76, but I'm just going to say, before you buy books like that, especially if they're a decade or so old, check that aftermarket and maybe save $60. I don't make any money on this, so I have no interest in other people paying more. So, the last one in this section that we wanted to talk about, another recommendation from Mala. Database design for mere mortals. So this is another one that, to be honest, I have not looked at before. It is 2013. Again, check that secondary market. You'll probably find somebody selling it for a pretty reasonable price. Tech books have the advantage that, for the most part, their market value collapses very fast.
Yeah, it's a design book. Again, this is a book from my college days. It's pretty old, and I haven't read it in a very long time. But I fished it out because Kevin asked this question about books. This rarely used older books. So that's when I got it out. And I'm sorry, I don't exactly remember what this book because it's been such a long time since I've read it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Generic book.
Okay, so that makes sense. Another book, we're throwing it out there as an option. May or may not work for you. It might be one where you may be able to find it in a library. Another thing with technical books, sometimes you'll find them in libraries, and it's kind of hit or miss depending on how good your library system is, but worth a shot. So you spend some time learning about T-SQL, pushed you down the relational database development side, and there are a couple of other areas that I think make sense as well, depending on your background. So I think if you're getting into SQL Server, that world, I don't think it makes sense to start anywhere but learning about T-SQL basics, and then learning the skills of the language. From there, there is a bit of a split. I did say if you want to be a database developer, I think the next option after that is build up some of those skills around relational database design.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work in the business intelligence space, I think it's still worth learning relational databases, but there are a couple of options that are going to be better suited for you in that world. And the first one is my go-to book for anything warehousing is the Data Warehouse Toolkit. So Ralph Kimball's book, it's been around for a while. It is still, to my mind, the definitive treatment of data warehousing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really good book. There are quite a few other books in this Kimball series, and they're all hit or miss, but mostly miss. So there's one about the Microsoft Data Warehouse Toolkit. There's the Data Warehouse ETL Toolkit. There's a couple of other books in this toolkit series, and I think the only one that I would unequivocally recommend is the Data Warehouse Toolkit. This is one of those books that you read it once, you say, this actually explains a lot of stuff. This is really useful. 3 years later, you go back and you read it again, and you realize how much stuff you missed. 3 years after that, you go back and you read it again, and you realize, I had no idea what I was talking about 6 years ago. It is the type of book that you get a better appreciation of over time as you begin to really understand some of the nuances that Kimball writes about. But on that first approach, you don't have enough experience really to understand what he's saying. And so you have that sort of, I'm going to mimic because this is what the book says. And then you start building in some of the background necessary to go back later and say, oh, okay, now I understand this, but I also understand the exception that was in this one little subclause on this page. And yeah, that's actually really meaningful. But I just glazed over it the first time because I didn't quite understand where it was going. So it is a book that grows over time. The other book that I want to recommend in this area, I have not read. This is about Datavault. So Datavault is pretty common in Europe. It is an interesting warehousing idea. Kind of fits a lot. It definitely works in contrast to the Kimball model. And there are advantages and disadvantages to each. Datavault people will talk about all the great things you can do with it. How about its incredible extensibility? And Kimball-style folks will talk about the incredible ease of use of a Kimball warehouse. So you have trade-offs, and you can go crazy and have different implementations where the core enterprise data warehouse is Datavault, but then it populates a Kimball-style Kimball-style warehouse which populates Kimball-style data marts. But essentially, this is a completely different strategy for warehousing. And to be fair, because I've not read this, I'm not sure if you should know Kimball's model before learning Datavault, or if there's enough within Datavault to really give an answer to like, hey, just go learn Datavault. Are we taking questions? Yes, absolutely. Shop Talk, we are all about taking questions at any point in time. So please drop
So
them
I
in.
have a friend who recommended this book. I am not very well read on data warehouse books at all. That's why I choose not to say anything while Kevin makes his recommendations, because that's not my area of expertise. I know very little about it. I know basics, that's it, but I know very little about Kimball or anything like that to comment on it. But a friend of mine recommended this book on agile data warehouse design for a job I had previously. Disclaimer, I have not read this book. And to me, the words agile and design give me a bit of a tremor. I'm scared because it rarely goes together. But for those of you who are heavily into agile, this might be something interesting you want to check out. Kevin?
Yep. Just finishing up typing. I was hoping that I would finish typing before you finished talking, but I didn't time it well enough. Yeah, so this is one of the 2 Datavault books people recommend. This is basically the implementation version. There's also one that's more of an academic approach to Datavault. But again, I haven't read either of them. I'm not familiar enough with the concept to tell you much, except that people who I know who do know Datavault recommend this book. So take that for what it is. So that's, you're thinking about warehousing. Maybe we have an opportunity to build out a warehouse. Reading up on this, definitely a good topic. If you're more interested in using an existing warehouse, there are a couple of books that I am able to recommend. So this first one is also by Kathy Kellenberger. Kathy might be one of the few authors on here who shows up more than once. Beginning SQL Server Reporting Services. So this is what this is about. So this is released in 2016, and the cover is wrong. Ignore that cover. That image is wrong. It's a totally different book. That's what was throwing me. So, that's a great question. Let's answer this question here. My background: don't have a computer science degree, but do have an engineering background. Learned the fundamentals of SQL. What are recommended next steps? More college or certifications? What are employers looking for? So, yeah, Mala's first question, what kind of engineering is helpful to understand? But also, is it that you're looking for a job in the data platform world? Are you currently working at a position and want to move over, or what's the situation? Because that can help
what
answer.
kind of job are you looking for too? Are you looking for a developer kind of a position, or do you want to be a DBA or a designer of some sort, or what is it? Because SQL falls into many different areas of work, and you can do many things with it. So
yeah, definitely. Like what we're doing today is just talking about database developer. So the first half of this was strictly, I'm a database developer. Now we're moving into, I'm a business intelligence developer. But something we're not even talking about is, I'm a database administrator. There's a whole nother set of books, whole nother set of topics, whole nother set of things to learn in that space. And we'll have a follow-up where we talk about DBA recommendations. But yeah, as you have more details that you'd like, as far as you'd like to go, JP, then let's, if you're able to put those in, we'll try to help understand what chemical engineering work does have SQL developers for metrics with SQL and Tableau, interested in business intelligence. Okay, so if you're if you are interested in business intelligence, you're already at a position where there are developers and you have SQL and Tableau. I think you're actually in a really good position right now. So a lot of people don't start as data platform professionals. It's almost always that you start out as a developer or a sysadmin or a network administrator, or you're in something totally different. And
Right.
that you sort of end up kind of getting nudged toward the database because, well, someone's got to do
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
work and I like that work, so I'll do it. So that's the plus side. There's typically not strong barriers to entry around becoming a data platform person. Most companies need them, even if that person has multiple roles and is kind of accidentally there. But given that you have some of those tools in place, I would say no, you don't really need more college. You know, if you have a degree, that's usually enough to get you past companies, especially once you have more than about 2 years of experience. If I see anybody who has multiple years of experience, I really don't care what their degree was in. So I think you're fine there. I don't think you need more college certifications. I'm pretty much mildly against getting certifications for attempts at job promotion. You know, my thought on that is if there's a company, if you know that the company requires you get certification X in order to get this position, all right, that's fine. Go get certification X if you want that job. I think that's reasonable.
The second one I would add, Kevin, is that if certifications are your preferred way of learning, I know some people learn that way. I
Yep.
was that way for some time until I just couldn't keep up with how many changes Microsoft kept doing to it. And then it wasn't worth my money or my time to
Right.
keep at it. But I like to learn in a structured way. I'm an academic at heart. I like
Yeah.
the structure, like after this, you learn this and this and this. It's easier for me than going out on a limb on my own. So it's, if you're like me, then that might help you. Assuming though that certs are not free and they can be quite expensive going down that path. So,
Yeah. You know,
I mean, I fully agree with Kevin when it comes to jobs and certifications.
right. Right. I'm
Yeah.
with you as well on this. If so, that's why I'm only mildly against certifications, because if
Right.
you like that style, go for it. Absolutely go through the material. And if you want, if you either want to have the piece of paper or you feel like you want the challenge, yeah, go ahead and get the cert. But I don't think it helps many hiring managers. Especially the last certification that I would say really gave you a strong leg up as from a hiring manager's perspective would have been the MCM. And that one's been gone for 8 years. So we have positions at my work, but currently I'm in a different, mostly unrelated position, but may be able to pivot to a position. What would I need to transition? Currently doing Udemy courses. Would I need portfolio projects? That might help. You know, it's depending on what the scenario looks like at your company. You might even be able to just talk to some of those folks if there's any sort of overlap between what you do and what they do. Then that might be a position for you to come in and say, you know, I'd really like to try out this. You may, if you have a feeling that your manager is interested in promoting you as a person, getting better over time, you may talk to your manager and say, I'd really like to be able to do this kind of work. Is there any way that we can bring some of that into my role?
Yeah.
And given that your company already has some structure around it, it might be as simple as saying, yeah, here's a collaborative project, or I've seen other cases where people have worked 5 to 10 hours a week in one position and the rest of the time in their regular position. So, sort of building up some of that experience, some of that skill, without having to change positions.
Right.
If you're doing Udemy courses, there are some good courses on Udemy. There are some really good ones.
Yeah.
I don't think a portfolio really helps you out too much. I think probably your best way in is, given that you currently have a job where they have that kind of work, is to try to do some of that internally, because then you start getting stuff on your resume. You start talking about, you have practical business projects that you can talk about, and
Right.
assuming that you're able to do some of that, even if you can't move over full time, if they say, sorry, we just can't bring you over, we have too many people for that role already, it's a lot easier to go out onto the market and in an interview for a BI specialist, you might be able to say, well, yeah, I worked on this project where we used these tools. We used Tableau. We were working with SQL Server underneath. Here's the type of stuff that I was doing. I built out this dashboard, and here was the net effect on the company. We were able to cut down on service alerts by 41%.
So I know I worked on Tableau sometime. It's been a while, but one thing I would recommend is that they have a freebie version for people to play with. I think it has some features missing from the paid one, but it's still okay. So you could install it on your private laptop or whatever you have for learning, and then play with it, write simple reports and things like that, and see what are the queries needed for that. So you do some homework like that, and maybe show it to your colleagues or your boss or whoever it is. Say, this is what I did at home, on my own, and I can learn this on my own. I can use these skills. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah.
That's second route in addition. I would consider that in addition to, and maybe even as a prerequisite, where you would want
and
to
if
show.
you're not very shy, consider putting it into a blog. I know some people think they don't know enough to blog and such, but you really don't need to know much to start a blog, and lots of beginner material out there. So if you don't feel very inhibited about that, then put out some of your own work into a blog. It's much easier to share with people and say, this is what I did, and most people are impressed that you tried something on your own.
Yep.
Yep.
Great way to learn by teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as you learn a little bit, you're able to hopefully work on some projects that are either collaborative with that group, or within your group, if you're able to work on something, say a dashboard or resources that would help out your team, that might technically be done by that other group, but you're doing it internally. Maybe even with the cooperation of the group. Say, hey, I'd love to be able to do the work on this. If somebody could help me by checking my work, by walking me through, giving me pointers. So if you feel like that group would be willing to cooperate, then that's probably your best bet. If your boss is interested in promoting your well-being, then there are cases for that sort of cross-team collaboration. And if you feel like that nothing is going to come from it, that maybe your boss doesn't want you to work over there and the other team is a bit insular, there are still ways that you can work on projects in that space if you have access to the data and the tools. And that might be something that is specifically for your team. So best case scenario, there's some cooperation, there's some growth and knowledge, and you're able to build up skills and figure out what kind of role fits you best. Worst case scenario, well, second to worst case scenario is that, yeah, you're not going to be able to do any work with that group, but maybe you can still work on some similar projects internally with your team. Worst case scenario, you can't do it at all, in which case it gets tougher. It's still, you might be able to take any sort of link that you have with the group and if you're able to show some ability, that may be enough to, say, flip to another position at some other company willing to give you that sort of role. But in the meantime, if you're going through Udemy courses, if that's working for you, you're learning from it, that's a good start. If you're able to get your hands on a project at work, that's probably your best bet. And as far as business intelligence goes, this is actually the right section of the night for it. So we posted links to Kimball's Data Warehouse Toolkit and to Datavault. Beginning SQL Server reporting services. If you haven't worked with reporting services before, it's got its foibles, but it does an all right job for what it is. And the follow-up book for that, Paul Turley's Professional SQL Server 2016 Reporting Services. So Paul is outstanding when it comes to teaching and presenting. The book is for SQL Server 2016, but that said, reporting services hasn't really improved since 2016, so you're not losing much. And it does talk about mobile reports, which they were really excited about at that point. Yes, best bet. Been automating some of the current group's reports with Python now. Yeah, cool. So you're already working with them. You're getting a chance
that's cool.
to work with automation. So yeah, that's, if you're able to extend that out a little bit, especially you let them know. I don't know if you've let them know that you're interested in doing more with this, but it sounds like you already have an opening. I'd say just keep pushing that opening. Keep learning more in your spare time as you can, and try to work on certain projects that cross those boundaries, especially if you can get closer to the thing that you'd like to do, even if it's along the lines of, here, let me pair program with somebody, let me shadow somebody as they're working on this Tableau dashboard. Or if you see something, like you see a dashboard and you don't feel like you have those skills quite yet, see what they're doing, try to reverse engineer it, build your own version of it if you have a Tableau license, and it doesn't have to go out anywhere, but you'll learn some of these tricks, you'll learn some of the processes by doing, and eventually be able to say, hey, maybe I can help out on this project. So I think that's you're in a good position right now. That it's just a matter of continuing to apply your skills, continuing to work with the people and build those relationships. So just a lot of SQL content. Want to narrow down my focus with projects. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can understand that, especially if you're working in Python, you're basically trying to maybe convert a bunch of other code into, say, T-SQL statements, building those out in Python to generate results to go load up Tableau or whatever exactly you're doing. I get that. On the plus side, it is still a way in. definitely a lot better than not having ways in.
Mm-hmm.
Last bit for tonight. So first, I didn't put in Pro reporting services. Power BI. Since we're talking about Tableau, let's hit the Power BI side. The Italians, Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari. These two guys are the top tier for analysis services and for Power BI. They have several books. DAX Patterns is their newest book, but they've got quite a bit. If you're interested at different levels, everything from introductory level up to quite a bit more. This talk cost me $114. So Thomas, I hope you went to isbn.new and saved some cash there. I've spent more on. I've done that as well before. Like, oh, I got to buy one of these and one of these and one of these. By the way, if you prefer videos, Alberto and Marco also have videos, and the videos are available for free, so you can check those out. These are hours and hours of content in Power BI. Again, different levels, everything from really high level introductory stuff to quite advanced expert level deep dives into evaluation context, for example. So this is another great resource. Let me put that in. So that's for videos, and then the other link here is for books. Philip Seymour has one of the worst named books. Let me put that in here. Beginning DAX with Power BI. Let me explain why it's so poorly named. This is not a beginner's book. This is by no means a beginner's book. Actually, I have a copy right here. This is a reasonably advanced book on the topic, but it is, I think, one of the best treatments of DAX.
No, for Power BI, I personally, that's probably one of those texts or topics that I do not find books useful. Just go and look at videos, look at things, how it's done. It would be much helpful to learn that way.
Yes, especially because Power BI changes every month. So there's so much in flux with the product that by the time a book gets out, that's already 18 months out of date. So, oops, that was the wrong one. The last one that I want to put in here is the Guy in a Cube channel. So this is Adam Saxton and Patrick LeBlanc.
This is a must-follow channel if you are into Power BI, or just, Adam and Pat, they are just amazing people. And the amount of hard work they've put into teaching folks Power BI and pushing it out, it is really incredible. So even if you have like 10-15 minutes of your time, watch one of these videos every day, you'll learn a lot. I must confess, I haven't kept up myself, but it's amazing what the work they've done.
Yeah, I would agree. Whoa, screen got all, I took up most of the screen. Yes, totally agree. Guy in a Cube is a great subscription. It's great. Let me try that again. Guy in a Cube is a great YouTube channel that you should subscribe to if you YouTube at all. Even if you don't, go check out their videos. They do a really good job of explaining things, and also they keep up to date. As Power BI monthly releases come out, they're out there telling you what's in those releases. They're telling you how to use it and how to take best advantage of what's available. So that covers our list. Pretty big list. In the show notes at shoptalk.tripass.org, I'll have links to all of those, and I will work on trying to put together that Amazon product list, so that way I can go back through.
Yes, I will help you back.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll put a link somewhere. Thank you again for the suggestion, Solomon. And we are going to wrap up. It is 8 o'clock already. I didn't expect that we would spend the entire hour talking about books, but here we go.
I fully expected that. So if you haven't signed up for Kevin's pre-con for the upcoming PASS Summit, I would just ask you to consider that too. If there's only another month or so left, there are lots of different pre-cons, and this is one of them. So I'm just saying, consider doing that for November for training. It's really good, solid, in-depth training on many areas.
So I will put in the general link for PASS Summit 2020 in case
Right.
you haven't seen that yet. If you do want to sign up for PASS Summit, our referral code gets you a discount off of Summit. I didn't know about shoptalk.trypass.org, but if a blog page makes more sense for the list, then perhaps there. Yeah, we'll probably end up doing it in both places because we've had Mala and I do book recommendations for the last several months. So it'd be good to consolidate all of those together. So, all right, with that, we actually do have a couple of recommendations, books and more, but we're going to have to save those for next time because we are out of time. Mentioned a Saturday 9 a.m. So that Saturday 9 a.m. is when Brent Ozar does his office hours.
Post the link. Give me just a minute. I will find it and post it here. So YouTube.
I'm also looking, but I'll let Mala post that link. In the meantime, let me close things out tonight by saying thank you so much for checking out Shop Talk. Hopefully we'll see you again next week. Brand new topics. If you have questions, hit us up. shoptalk@trypass.org.
That is one of his shows. If you just follow him, based on that, that one show, then he does this every Saturday morning.
Perfect. So check that out, and we'll see you all again next time.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.